Welcome to USA Update, your fastest and most trusted source for breaking news from across the United States. From politics to the economy, weather alerts to viral trending stories, we bring you every update, every moment as it happens. Donald Trump is losing in his efforts to prosecute people on his so-called enemies list, while at the same time new Jeffrey Epstein pictures are continuing to surface. In this special weekend legal update, I'm going to connect both of these developments because they are closely related.
I am Shakib.
For daily USA immigration and visa updates, don't forget to subscribe to USA Update News. The failure of Donald Trump to successfully prosecute his enemies is an extremely important story. First, it shows the limits of power within the current United States system, even with all the well-known accountability problems and government failures. In another way, it shows that some guardrails and protections in the system are still functioning. While many people may move on and think, okay, he didn't get James Comey, what's next? This is actually a story Trump would prefer to disappear. He does not want people to realize that his threats don't always work, even though attempts at prosecution, successful or not, can still seriously disrupt people's lives. A major example is Trump's repeated failure to prosecute New York Attorney General Letitia James. This marks the third attempt, and it is a significant development. In earlier efforts, Trump lost 2 prosecutors altogether because they were never legally in their positions. Attempts to exploit loopholes and use temporary prosecutors for partisan prosecutions failed. The first collapse happened with Lindsay Halligan, whom Trump is now attempting to reinstall in government, despite the fact that she was ruled never to have legally held the prosecutorial role. The case fell apart because once Halligan was disqualified, no one else in the office was willing to sign on to what many viewed as an unlawful or baseless prosecution. The second attempt failed when a grand jury rejected the case. Legally, prosecutors are allowed to try again, which led to a third attempt before a different grand jury. This is notable because of the common saying that a grand jury could indict a ham sandwich. That phrase exists because grand juries operate under a low evidentiary standard, hear mostly from prosecutors, and rarely block indictments. They are not trials. They are the earliest checkpoint in the justice system. Historically, the grand jury serves as one of the first protections against abuse of government power. Long before the Constitution, governments could arrest and imprison people without rights. Concepts like habeas corpus and grand juries were designed to ensure that citizens have protections before the government can detain or prosecute them. While grand juries usually approve prosecutions, they exist specifically to stop cases where the government brings charges without sufficient evidence. In this case, 2 separate grand juries rejected the effort to indict Letitia James, which is deeply embarrassing for Trump, and a clear rejection of the enemies list approach. What makes this especially meaningful is who made these decisions: regular citizens. Most people called into jury service are not legal or political experts. They often feel pressure to go along with authority figures like judges and prosecutors. Yet in these cases, 2 separate groups of ordinary people said no. That reflects independence and courage, especially when contrasted with wealthy elites and powerful institutions, universities, law firms, and business leaders, many of whom have quickly capitulated to Trump's abuses of power despite previously criticizing him. These grand jurors demonstrated that the system still requires due process. Federal agents cannot simply arrest and detain people without following legal procedures. Judges will order releases if that process is violated. More importantly, citizens serving on juries are fulfilling their role at the highest level, listening to the evidence and rejecting overreach when the evidence is not there. In that sense, these regular citizens showed more backbone than many powerful elites. If you're keeping score, in cases that have reached key legal stages, Donald Trump is effectively 0 for 3. That count includes the multiple failed attempts against Letitia James, as well as efforts involving figures like Mayor Baraka and James Comey. Other cases remain pending, including matters involving John Bolton and others, but the broader pattern shows the enemies list strategy is faltering. Turning to the second major topic, Jeffrey Epstein, this story continues to evolve. While accountability failed for years and the system broke down in many ways, pressure from survivors and the public has led to meaningful change. Federal law was rewritten, initially driven by Democrats and later supported by some Republicans, forcing the release of grand jury materials. As a result, 3 judges have ruled that materials from both Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell cases must be released. The Epstein estate has complied with lawful demands, leading to the release of a massive trove of emails. These disclosures have had real-world consequences, exposing efforts by influential figures to downplay or conceal their connections to Epstein. Individuals ranging from former Harvard President Larry Summers to Steve Bannon appeared in the emails, revealing previously hidden interactions and attempts to rehabilitate Epstein's reputation. Now, new photos are emerging, released lawfully through congressional pressure, showing Epstein with powerful figures across politics and culture, including Donald Trump in earlier years and others like Bill Clinton and Woody Allen. These images do not tell the full story on their own, but they reinforce the reality that Epstein maintained deep and personal access to influential people. This all comes ahead of a December 19th deadline requiring the Department of Justice to release materials with only narrow exceptions. Judges have ruled that even grand jury material does not qualify for blanket redaction. While protecting survivors and minors is essential, entire documents cannot simply be blacked out under false pretenses. Under growing pressure, even some Republicans have warned the DOJ not to misuse redactions. While many aspects of the system have failed over time, it is striking that sustained public pressure and legal reforms are producing results. Evidence is emerging, transparency is increasing, and legal guardrails, from grand juries to court rulings, are holding in key moments. This has been a special weekend update. You can always subscribe to my YouTube channels for more legal breakdowns. Leave your questions and thoughts in the comments. I do read and respond to many of them. Stay tuned. For daily USA immigration and visa updates, don't forget to subscribe to USA Update News. Thanks for watching.